Hi, Dionysis. Welcome.
Hello, Cinnamon. Hello. Thanks for having me.
I would like to ask you, what will be the impact of EU ETS and Fuel EU for the maritime industry?
The impact of the Fuel EU and EU ETS for the maritime industry is a high one. It's the first time that we have a penalty that is being issued from regulators, specifically European regulators, for the shipping industry related to emissions and subsequently to the fuels that are being used in the maritime industry. As we know, bunkers or marine fuels are the bigger cost of the maritime adventure, and of course are what propel the ships to do to produce their work. So when we have regulation that affects and affects, of course, has an effect and affects emissions and is considering also what fuels are being used both on a tank-to-wake or on a well-to-wake basis. Therefore, we understand that it would be a high impact on both costs, penalties, and different other challenges that are related to the regulation, such as pathways of compliance, finding correct counterparties to deal with, etc., for the maritime industry.
And could you explain a little bit on the similarities and differences between EU ETS and Fuel EU?
Of course. The EU ETS, or more correctly put, revised EU ETS or revised EU Trading System Directive, is basically a financial measure that Europe has put in place since 2024 for shipping, but has long pre-existing for other industries since 2005. It's, if you would will, a financial measures or an emission tax, if you want to say it this way, that aims to penalize emissions, and emissions are the focal point. We have a tank-to-wake considerations on emissions, meaning that we are responsible in the spectrum of the EU ETS to calculate the emissions from the time we receive the fuel on board our vessels and we burn it and it comes as gaseous forms out of our funnels. The Fuel EU Maritime, on the other hand side, is a technical measure which aims to push the uptake of alternative fuels in the maritime segment in the future. And of course, has to do with what fuel we are supporting and what fuel we're burning in our vessels. It aims on reducing a specific baseline of greenhouse gas intensity indices for each vessel in specific way and scaling as years progress and each 5 years in the industry, for which ships that are under-compliant with under-compliant greenhouse gas intensity index will be penalized, and the pathway of compliance for this regulation would be, of course, to choose a proper alternative fuel that will put the vessel in compliance or over-compliance to be shared then potentially through pooling mechanisms. The similarity between these two regulations, parts of regulation, is of course that they both affect vessels of 5,000 gross tons and above, cargo and passenger vessels, based of course on the EU MRV data.
Great, thanks, Dionysis. Talk to you soon.